toxic masculinity.
Biden tax hikes will cost 1 million jobs.
1 million jobs. Yeah, so there's a new...
Is it about corporate tax?
Yeah, there's a new study out, and it's indicated that we're going to lose 1 million jobs from his tax hikes. If President Joe Biden's corporate tax increases and other changes to the tax code are passed unchanged, about 1 million jobs will be lost in the first 2 years. In the first 2 years, isn't that crazy? Following passage and economic activity will also decrease, according to a new economic study. And they've got a link to it here. This is in the Epoch Times. The study by the National Association of Manufacturers, conducted by Rice University economists, found Biden's infrastructure plans would cause a barrage of negative consequences. Biden has called for a corporate tax increase to 28% from the current 21%. This study tells us quantitatively what manufacturers from coast to coast will tell you qualitatively. Increasing the tax burden on companies in America means fewer American jobs. I mean, this is something that we've talked about quite a bit, one of the reasons that we did so well under Trump is that he deregulated a lot and he reduced taxes. And so we had this huge economic boom. We had all this employment. Mm-hmm. We had this increased prosperity, and we had this increase in quality of life, which is what I was talking about earlier in the show. The fact that Democrats deny the benefit that we received from Trump's leadership is a little bit weird, because even though we know how much they hate him, it's so blatantly obvious. It's like we're both looking at a red balloon, and the Democrat's like, "That's not a red balloon. That's a green balloon." And you're just looking at them like, "Okay, I know you don't like balloons, but that's a red balloon. I'm sorry, the balloon's red." It's like, nope, it's green. I hate balloons, and I will not admit that balloon is red. It's just like, it's like you're listening to a crazy person when you listen to Democrats talk about Trump. They're just crazy. All right, moving on. The study tells us okay, I already read that. The study calculated the effects of increasing the corporate tax rate, increasing the top marginal tax rate, repealing the 20% pass-through deduction, eliminating certain expensing provisions, and other actions outlined in Biden's infrastructure proposal. The other consequences include the GDP shrinking by $117 billion by 2023, $190 billion in 2026, and $119 billion in 2031. Total employment, which is tracked by the number of hours worked, would also fall by 0.7% initially before moderating. The reduction in hours worked equals an employment loss of 1 million full-time jobs in 2023. By 2026, these jobs would still be gone before later stabilizing. According to the study, the average annual reduction of employment would be equivalent to a loss of 600 jobs each year over 10 years. That is insane. And it actually goes on with more and more and more details. If you want to read this article, it's in the Epoch Times. Biden's corporate tax hikes would cost 1 million jobs. I mean, it's devastating. It's devastating. Another conversation I had earlier today with somebody was about how, I asked why Democrats hate Donald Trump so much, to a Democrat. And this Democrat said to me, they listed all of these ways in which Trump was unqualified for presidential office, which was really a weird way of arguing the point, because this was like a point that should have been made, in like 2016 when he was running, this idea that, he's unqualified. And it was an argument that was made when he was running. But the problem is that you can speculate all you want about how a businessman might run a country versus somebody who's actually worked in government previously, who's had the experience, right? But we don't have to do that anymore. We actually have what happened, right? What happened exists. We can look into the history of what Trump did and how the economy went and what happened. We don't have to speculate about how Trump can do something. And also this idea that a businessman could not run a country better than a politician.
Yeah, who's sitting in the office for 47 years not doing anything. Sure.
Yeah, that's right. You knew where I was going with this. Yeah. I mean, look, certainly I think certainly people would logically come to the conclusion that if you've run a country or you've run a state or you've been in government before, then you're maybe better qualified to work in government than somebody who's never worked in government because you have some kind of experience. That's, I think, how a lot of people would think about it. But the problem is there's a lot of people that work in government that are terrible at their jobs, right? Like, I mean, if you grabbed somebody off the street who was a great artist, who just drew things really, really well, and you say, we need a cartoonist to draw our comic strip. And they said, okay, I've never drawn a comic strip, but I'll give it a shot, but they're a good artist, right? You might end up with a great comic strip. But if you bring in somebody who's worked in comics for like 30 years, but they've never been really a good artist, they've just, they had their dad owned a comic company or something like that, and they just worked at the job, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be the best at that job. I mean, okay, comic book's probably a bad example because most people who draw comics can already draw. But you know what I mean? Like, a lot of people work jobs in this world that aren't good at their job. There's a lot of people that aren't good at their job. And it's like, why do we assume that if somebody's done a job before and they have experience, relevant experience, that means they're necessarily going to be great? It really doesn't. And why do we think that somebody who's never done the job before can't possibly do it? Well, if they've had experience that is transferable, even if it's not direct experience, they haven't done that job specifically, but they've done other jobs which actually could potentially make them even better suited for the job than somebody who's had that experience, that would actually make them more attractive. That should make them more attractive for that job. So this idea that somebody doesn't have experience in politics, therefore they can't be a politician, is just ridiculous, first of all. Secondly, a lot of these politicians have not been looking to do things in a way that is the most efficient and the most effective because they only know politics. They only know how to work as a politician. Trump knew how to work as a businessman, which gave him a totally different insight into how to get things done. And you know what he did? He got things done. He was one of the most effective, probably the most effective president in history. Of all the stuff he tried to get done, he probably got more stuff done than any president ever. Ever. And Democrats might hate him for doing things they don't like, but you cannot possibly make the argument that he was not effective. He was maybe too effective if you're a Democrat and you don't like the things that he did. But a lot of times Democrats look at what Trump did and they say, and they don't even recognize all the good things he did for the black community in America, or for gay people in America, or for gay people throughout the world even. He signed like some kind of, I don't remember what it was exactly, some kind of legislation to try to combat the sort of murder and abuse of gay people around the world. He was trying to fight against that, which is fantastic. But he did a lot of great stuff, I think, that the left would love. He assigned a lot of new land for national parks, and he did a lot of stuff that leftists should love. But they never look at that stuff because they don't want to believe that Trump did anything that they might like. Are you going to fall asleep?
No.
You look like you're about to pass out.
Hard.
All right, we are almost done. Let me just... Yeah. Okay, basically, at the end of the day, Joe Biden does not know how to effectively run the country. He certainly doesn't know how to present an appropriate fiscal plan. And the truth is, we all know that Biden's not the smartest guy. So it's not even Biden that's doing this. It's the Biden people. It's the Biden controllers. And they're all these far left Democrats, and they have this vision for how the world should be. And they're putting in all this like Green New Deal crap that's just going to devastate the economy. And they know it, and they don't care. Whoever's making up this infrastructure plan is intentionally ruining the U.S. economy. And I don't really know how to fight against it because Republicans aren't in power right now. But we need to at least be aware of it because it is devastating and it's tragic. And this is what happens when you elect Democrats or they somehow get into office. All right, shall we move on to the next story? Sorry, darling, there's just one more. There is just one more.
Better to be quick or I'm just gonna...
You want to read it?
Yes.
You having trouble? Do you want me to read it?
No.
Okay.
Students outraged professor has empathy for Trump supporters.
Empathy.
Empathy.
Ah, it's the word empathy we're having trouble with. Yeah.
Yes, I was like, what?
Yeah, students. Okay, let me go ahead and switch to the this view. Okay, students seek to oust professor who's explained motivation of peaceful Trump voters. He seemed to have some empathy for Trump voters. Toxic Masculinity, weekdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific.